There is a quiet, persistent feeling that many people carry throughout their lives, the feeling of not being good enough. It doesn't always show up as tears or dramatic failure. Most of the time, it's a subtle whisper inside your mind, when you're about to do something important, when you're in a room full of people, or even when you're alone, staring at your reflection in the mirror. It's that inner voice saying, "Others are better, I'm not smart enough, they're going to think I'm ridiculous, if only I were more attractive, more capable, more something." It doesn't scream, but it repeats itself just enough that you begin to believe it. This feeling doesn't come from nowhere. It is the product of countless experiences, memories, social structures, and the way your brain has learned to operate. And to understand why you, a person with worth and potential, keep feeling not enough, we have to trace the roots all the way back to the beginning. Children don't naturally compare. They just exist and feel. But very early on, signals from adults begin to shape how a child sees themselves. When a child is praised for being obedient, for achieving high grades, for making adults proud, they start to learn that their self-worth is conditional, that it's tied to performance and approval. On the other hand, if they are criticized, constantly compared, or emotionally neglected, the child often develops a fragile self-esteem. I am only lovable when I meet others' expectations. Psychologists call this conditional self-worth, and once a child absorbs the belief that love and acceptance must be earned, they often grow into adults who feel constantly lacking, constantly on edge, and never quite enough. Carl Rogers, a founding figure in humanistic psychology, believed that all people have an innate need for unconditional positive regard, the experience of being accepted without judgment. But life rarely provides that perfectly. Many people grow up in environments of high expectation, emotional criticism, or neglect. As a result, they develop a false self, a protective mask designed to adapt and win approval. But the cost is a loss of connection with their authentic identity. This not enoughness is further reinforced by a powerful mental mechanism called social comparison. Psychologist Leon Festinger found that people naturally assess themselves by comparing with others, especially when lacking objective standards. In the age of social media, this effect becomes overwhelming. You're no longer just comparing yourself to your neighbor or coworker, but to hundreds of carefully curated strangers, flawless faces, perfect lives, endless success. Even if you know logically that it's filtered, emotionally, your brain takes it in. You start to ask, why am I not like them? Why is my life such a mess? And gradually, you stop seeing what you do have, because the benchmark has been pushed to something unattainable. Modern psychology also links this persistent self-doubt to distorted self-schemas, the mental frameworks through which you organize beliefs about yourself. If your early experiences were filled with rejection, bullying, failure, or emotional invalidation, these schemas become negative. Every new event gets filtered through that lens, reinforcing a belief like, "See? I'm not enough." In cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, these are called core negative beliefs, and unless they are consciously challenged, they will silently shape your entire perception of reality. Biologically, we must also acknowledge the brain's negativity bias, its natural tendency to focus more on threats and failures than on safety and success. This bias helped our ancestors survive by remembering danger, but in today's world, it makes us more sensitive to criticism, more likely to ruminate on mistakes, and less able to internalize praise. For those already struggling with self-doubt, this creates a feedback loop of self-criticism. On top of that, many Eastern cultures, including Vietnamese culture, emphasize humility and self-effacement as signs of politeness and respect. Praising oneself can be seen as arrogance, so people are often trained from childhood to downplay their achievements. Over time, this conditioning can make it uncomfortable or even impossible to truly believe in one's own worth. Eventually, all of this accumulates into that familiar inner voice, not loud, not angry, but endlessly persistent. It tells you to wait until you're good enough, perfect enough, worthy enough before you pursue what matters. It makes you dismiss compliments, trust criticism, and doubt whether people truly care about you. It convinces you that if you reveal your true self, others will turn away. And so you shrink, hide, perform, and protect, not because you're weak, but because you've learned survival that way. Here's the paradox: the more you feel not good enough, the harder you try to become enough. You study harder, work longer, give more, prove yourself over and over. And you achieve many things. But you don't allow yourself to feel proud. You tell yourself it's not a big deal, or that it's still not enough. You are stuck in an endless race between your current self and an ever-moving ideal. And because the ideal always shifts, you always feel behind. So how do we begin to break free from this cycle? First, realize that feeling not enough is not a truth, it's a conditioned belief. It was learned, and what is learned can be unlearned. Ask yourself, who was the first person that made me feel this way? What belief have I carried for years without ever questioning it? Journaling your thoughts can help you catch those vague emotional patterns and bring them into the light. Second, learn to validate yourself without achievement. This is difficult, especially if your identity is tied to productivity or perfectionism. But you can start small. Feel proud for setting boundaries. Feel proud for resting when tired. Feel proud for facing a fear. Psychologists call this self-acknowledgement, and it's essential for developing healthy self-esteem. Third, consider adjusting your environment. If your digital world is filled with content that triggers insecurity, curate your feed. If you live in a space of judgment or toxic comparison, seek out communities where empathy and acceptance are normal. You have the right to choose your emotional environment, and lastly, don't wait to feel enough to start living. You are allowed to be imperfect and still be worthy of love. You are allowed to mess up, fall short, and still be valuable. Healing doesn't mean erasing every scar. It means walking forward with them gently. So if today, again, you feel not enough, ask yourself, by whose standard? If the answer doesn't come from love, understanding, and compassion, maybe that's not a standard worth living by. And when you begin to accept yourself, not because of what you do, but simply because you exist, you'll discover something powerful: you were always enough. All along.